Writers Read by Lit Tracy. Getting that book in children's hands.
Hi, I'm Tracy Grice, and welcome to this special episode of the Writers Read podcast. Well, the lead up to Book Week is in full swing, and classrooms and libraries across Australia are embracing this year's theme, Reading is My Secret Power. I thought I'd put together a series of Book Week podcasts for you, featuring the Children's Book Council of Australia's shortlisted books in the Younger Readers category. So as usual, I got to spend some time with these authors, hearing an excerpt of their shortlisted novel, and I got to ask them some questions around this year's Book Week theme. On this episode, I'm chatting with Victorian-based author Carly Nugent, author of The Peacock Detectives.
In The Peacock Detectives, the main character, who is 11-year-old Cassie, she's trying to find two peacocks, Virginia and William Shakespeare, and they've escaped from the holiday flats next door. In this chapter, while she's chasing one of the peacocks with her dog Simon, Cassie sees her dad doing something that she finds strange and unsettling. This is the beginning of a new mystery for Cassie, and it's one that she's not sure she wants to solve. I'm going to start reading from chapter 15. On Sunday, it rained again, so I wrote down all the things that had happened on Saturday and started reading To Kill a Mockingbird. Dad is teaching it for Year 9 English, and he let me borrow his copy. Then today, two things happened that made me think my luck was changing. 1, the sun came out, and 2, it was a pupil-free day. A pupil-free day means kids don't go to school, but teachers do, so they can get work done without being distracted. Work like writing reports or putting up displays or having staff meetings. So on Monday morning, Dad ate his breakfast and got his bag and his keys and went to school. And Diana stayed in her room meditating, and Mum went to the library, and Simon and I went looking for the peacocks. I packed my backpack with water and zucchini cake. I was going to call Jonas, but then I remembered he was leaving this morning for his big overseas holiday with Peter and Irene, so I didn't. I showed Simon William Shakespeare's feather, and I let him sniff it. I was hoping doing this would help him find the peacocks, the way letting police dogs sniff evidence helps them find criminals. But Simon just looked confused, and when I pushed the feather closer to his nose, he sneezed all over it. Simon is definitely not police dog material. While we were walking, Simon had his nose down deep in the leaves. He moved really fast and sniffed a lot, and he kind of looked and sounded like a vacuum cleaner. I liked the idea that we were vacuuming for clues. We vacuumed all the way along the river in one direction and all the way back again in the other. We vacuumed off the track and into the bush and under logs and into wombat holes. We vacuumed for so long that the sun climbed right up into the middle of the sky and my stomach started grumbling. We hadn't found any clues, and I was about to suggest that it was time for zucchini cake. But then Simon stopped and stood very still. Simon never stops and stands still unless something important is happening, like Dad opening a can of food or Aunt Sally's car pulling into our driveway. The only thing that moved was Simon's pink nose. It twitched and its nostrils got wider, and the little hairs on the end of it stood up and reached forward like they were arrows pointing towards the smell. My eyes followed Simon's nose across the river and between two gum trees, and standing there, with his tail folded up and his wings tucked against him, was William Shakespeare. It took the rest of Simon a while to catch up with his nose. Because Simon is a Brittany Spaniel, smell is his best sense. But when it did, he started running, and there was nothing I could do except hold on to his lead and run too. After smelling, Simon's best skill is being strong, so when he started pulling us down the bank towards William Shakespeare, I knew I had no hope. I was going in the river. It wasn't as cold as I expected it to be, but it was as wet. I landed on my bum and yelled, "Ow!" and that was when Simon finally stopped and turned around to look at me. His face was a mix of, "What are you doing in the river?" and "Hurry up." I quickly checked to make sure there were no yabbies nearby and then hauled myself out of the water. Across the river, William Shakespeare was standing between the gum trees. He was looking at us with his head on one side, like he was trying to figure out what we were doing. Then Simon barked and William Shakespeare let out a loud "Leow" sound and ran off into the bush. By the time we got out of the water and up the bank and through the trees, William Shakespeare was nowhere to be seen. Simon looked at me with the same face he has when he thinks he's getting a bone, and it turns out to be a worm tablet. William Shakespeare had led us to the other side of town. We vacuumed slower because we were disappointed and because I was waterlogged. past the bank and the very nice restaurant and Lee Street and the bus station. When we got to the hospital, we sat down for a rest. Simon licked my wet shoes and I gave him some zucchini cake. Then I tried to decide what to do next. While we were sitting and eating and thinking, a car door slammed. I looked up. Across the road was a red station wagon, which is exactly the kind of car that my dad drives. And walking away from the red station wagon, even though he should have been photocopying or cleaning his desk or having a meeting, was my dad. When Simon saw Dad, he started whimpering and pulling on the lead and trying to get to him. But something about the look on Dad's face and the direction he was walking in made me think he wouldn't be happy to see us. And the direction he was walking in was past the hospital and up the little path and through the little gate and into the clinic. I pulled Simon behind some bushes and knelt down. We watched Dad walk, in his brown going-to-work shoes with his brown going-to-work bag. And he looked exactly like my dad in every way, except that he was in a place I'd never seen my dad go, making a face I'd never seen my dad make. We watched until the door of the clinic closed behind him, and until the shot put in my stomach was so heavy I thought I might throw up. The only thing I could think to do next was go home, so I packed up the zucchini cake and the water and William Shakespeare's feather, and we went. And that's how chapter 15 ends. So Cassie doesn't really know what the clinic is, but she does know that sometimes when people start going to the clinic, they don't always come back. So she's concerned about this and she's wondering why he's going to the clinic, and she's also wondering if he might disappear as well, and she's not quite sure if she really wants to find out the answer to that. So it's it's a bit tough for Cassie, but I think it's a mystery that she's kind of caught up in, and she doesn't have a lot of choice about solving it. But yeah, so it should be good.
Well, you've most certainly whet the appetite for people to find out what happens and, to get that book in their hands.
Hi, I'm Carly Nugent, and you're listening to the Writers Read podcast.
Carly, this year's Book Week theme, as you know, is Reading is My Secret Power. So for younger readers, what do you think are the keys to unlocking this secret power?
It's a very good question, and there's quite a few answers, but I think the biggest one for me is curiosity is kind of the way into that secret power of reading. And I think wanting to know things about the world and wanting to have access to the world on your own rather than through other people. And I remember the first time that I could actually read on my own, and it was The Cat in the Hat by Dr. Seuss. And I can distinctly remember the moment where I realised that I could put the words together and I could understand those words. And it was kind of like I'd cracked a code that could let me find out these things about life that before I had to rely on adults to tell me. And not that I didn't trust the adults in my life, but sometimes I guess I had the feeling that they weren't telling me entirely the whole truth about everything. So being able to read was kind of, I guess like my own way into the world. And it was that like need to find out things that kind of unlocked it in that way. And I guess the other key is finding an author or finding a genre that you really connect with and that you really love. So for me, it was obviously Dr. Seuss at the beginning, but then I sort of got into Enid Blyton, Famous Five and Secret Seven and mystery type stories. Also things like Paul Jennings and those kind of short stories that are a bit weird and a bit dark and a bit funny. I was sort of into those as well. So I think, like that's a key, is searching until you find something you really love. And also you don't have to feel like while you're searching, if you start something and it doesn't connect with you, not to feel like you have to finish it. Like there's so much out there to read. You can afford to, do some hunting around, I think, too. So.
Sure.
Yeah.
So when in that process of searching, how do you as a reader commit to something? Because often you see, and you work with students also, that browsing can take a really long time. And, what's the thing that kind of helps you make that sort of commitment to a book and say, yep, this is the one I'm going to read now?
Yeah, it's really hard. And I think for me, it's at the moment anyway, it's recommendations from people. So from friends, like I have a lot of friends that I talk about books with, and I listen to podcasts and sort of hear things there. I've recently, in the last few months, joined a book club, and that's been really good because I've been reading things that I would never have picked up necessarily. And some of them you like, and some of them you don't like as much. But and I do try, like, if someone's recommended something and they've kind of, talked it up, I do try to finish it, even if I'm not super, super into it. So I might kind of skim over some of the chapters or something, but I do usually try and get to the end of stuff. But I guess I would very rarely just pick up a book without knowing anything about it. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense? So usually someone's said something, or I know the author from another book that I've read or something like that, I guess. Yeah, but it's hard sometimes, for sure.
Do you have a formula for when you're reading a book and it's not perhaps grabbing you the way you hope from the start? Do you give it a certain number of pages or chapters? How do you work that out?
I think I don't have an exact formula, but thinking about it, I'd say probably if I've gotten like a third of the way into the book and it hasn't grabbed me, then it's probably not going to. But I've often had the experience where the first few chapters I'm like, oh, I don't know about this. And then I keep going a few more chapters, and then suddenly I'm really hooked. So I do think I do think that reading is not just a passive activity. So like you as the reader, you're participating as well. So sometimes I think it's unfair to say, oh, well, this book wasn't interesting from the first chapter, so I just gave up. Like, you have to do a bit of the work as well. So, and some books, some books aren't the easiest to read, but that doesn't mean they're not worth reading, I think, as well. Sometimes they do take more work, and they just might not be the books that you want to read on a plane or on your holiday. But yeah.
Depending on your mood.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd say so.
So we've heard about your earliest days as a reader and what that offered you. But I guess you're sort of building on that. What have you found are the secret powers books give you that you didn't know you had?
Definitely the idea that books help you get to know other people and other situations and places that you never would have access to. And never would have been able to experience firsthand. I think that's so incredible, and I think you get that much more from a book in a personal way than you do from a film. Maybe with a film you'd get more of a visual sense of something possibly, but I think in a book you really get that inside the head of somebody else. And it feels very personal because you're the only one at that moment inside the head of that person. Whereas like you can be watching a film with a whole cinema of people and it's more of a shared experience. But in a book it's so much more personal. And I think a lot of people recently have been talking about how reading helps create empathy, and I think that's really true as well. I'm thinking about a book I read recently, and I think it's called Behind the Beautiful Forevers, and it's by Catherine Boo, and it's actually non-fiction, but it's written like a novel about the slums in Delhi in India. And this woman went and lived there and interviewed a lot of people and really got inside their heads. And that's a place that I would have had no connection with. Even if I had gone there, I don't think I would have had any real understanding. But I think a book can really help you get into people's minds like that and people's experiences. So I think that is a really strong superpower to have, to be able to do that. And then also I think almost paradoxically it can show you not just different experiences, but reading can show you how other people have the same feelings or the same experiences that you do, even if they come from totally different backgrounds or places. And that I think especially when you read about people that have flaws and that have, fears and anxieties that are the same that you have, that makes you feel less alone. And I think it gives you confidence and it gives you courage. So I feel like, for me, they're the two big superpowers for me, like the ability to empathize and the ability to feel encouraged by having access to those experiences and to other people in that way, other characters, And it's a very good question, though. It's really, until I started thinking about that question, I hadn't really articulated it in that way, but it's true.
Well, you've just really touched on two incredible powers that I probably hadn't really thought about in that way either. And we're so blessed in Australia to have such brilliant authors like yourself who can draw us into that human experience that we either connect with or that we have had no experience with, and that enables us to develop that empathy. So thank you for writing and giving us those stories so that we can, unlock those powers that we perhaps didn't even know we had as well as readers.
Well, thank you for reading as well. It's a two-way street.
So we're leading into Book Week, and again, you work with students. Have you got some exciting celebrations planned?
I know we are having a dress-up day.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure exactly which day it's going to be, and we'll have a little dress-up parade. We'll have some prizes. So I haven't, still thinking about my costume. So I've still got some time, and I'm going to make it a good one this year. So it's always a lot of fun. I think we'll probably do some book-based activities, and we're such a small school, so we don't have a regular librarian, but our library doubles as our art room and our drama room, and so that's kind of my space where I work. So we'll probably utilise that a bit during Book Week and celebrate some of the books and explore what's down there, and I think it'll be fun.
And your students must be so super excited that their teacher is on the short list. I mean, there must be a real buzz at your school.
They're pretty excited. They're pretty awesome kids, and I'm sure that they will at some point be listening to this podcast. So I'd like to say, hi, Paul Primary School. You guys are fantastic.
Lovely.
They're just, it's been great being at school and being able to talk to the kids about the book and also about the process of, what it's like to go from having an idea and then it turning into a book, and that it's not magic. Like, you do have to go through quite a lot of steps. So that's been a really interesting kind of learning curve we've gone through together in a way. So,
For sure. And so for your students and all students who are listening to this podcast in the lead up to Book Week, do you have a special message for them?
I think Book Week is a really good opportunity to maybe take some risks with your reading and try something new. So kind of explore a different genre or a different author, different style. I mean, like, if you're the kind of person that usually reads novels, maybe pick up a book of short stories and try some short stories. Or if it's short stories that you read, maybe try some poetry. Maybe fiction or non-fiction, just kind of mix it up. And again, like, if something doesn't grab you, put it down, go and pick up something else. I think it would be a really good idea and a really good activity just to go into the library and go to a section that you've never been to before and just pick something out and just read the first page and just do that a few times and sort of get some ideas about what you're interested in. And if you have a librarian, which unfortunately we do, but not all the time, go to the library and ask them for recommendations, because I know they always have amazing ideas about new books that have come out or classic books that they've loved that, maybe have gotten forgotten about a little bit sometimes. So, I guess that would be my message. That's what I'm going to do in Book Week. Anyway.
Yeah, I'm going to steal one of those ideas too. I love that idea of going to a section you haven't been to before. So that's one I'll encourage my students to do as well.
You never know what's in there.
Absolutely.
It's just, treasure hunt.
Yeah. Well, we wish you all the very best for a wonderful Book Week and all the lead up and celebrations, but also for the announcement for the Younger Readers category. Well done for your book being on the short list, and thank you for your time.
Very exciting. Thank you so much, Tracy. This has been great. And thank you for the podcast.
Well, I hope you enjoyed this special Book Week episode of Writers Read featuring Carly Nugent. To keep up to date with all our podcasts, make sure you subscribe to Writers Read by Lit Tracy on your preferred platform.
Writers Read by Lit Tracy. Getting that book in children's hands. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram @Writers Read by Lit Tracy.